Rain fell across the steel rooftops of the settlement. The colony lights reflected in the puddles, making the wet streets shine. It was late in the night, and most workers had already gone back to their small homes. The sound of the rain was the only thing moving through the air until a sharp knock came at Aaron's door. Aaron had been sitting at his desk, repairing a broken scanner. His hands were covered in fine dust from the small gears. But the knock made him stop. He was not expecting anyone. People did not visit this far edge of the colony without reason. He stood and walked to the door, pressing the button to open it. A figure stood outside. She was small, soaked from the rain, her clothes covered in dirt. Her hair was wet and stuck to her face. Her eyes showed fear, but also determination. She stepped forward slightly, her voice low but clear. "Please, just let me stay here tonight." Aaron's first thought was that she must have been running from someone, but the colony was peaceful. Then he noticed the mark on her arm, a faint, glowing band of pale blue light. It was not a tattoo or colony tag. He had never seen anything like it before. He stepped aside to let her in. She moved quickly, her eyes scanning the room as if making sure it was safe. Aaron closed the door and locked it. "You are not from here," Aaron said. She nodded, still looking at the windows. "No, I came from beyond the ridge. Please, do not tell anyone I am here." The ridge was miles away, beyond the mining tunnels and into the Badlands. There were no settlements past that point, only strange rock formations and old ruins from a time before humans arrived. People sometimes said they saw lights there at night, but most believed it was just mining gas burning in the air. Aaron kept his voice calm. "You are safe here. Tell me your name." "My name is Lyra," she said. "I've escaped." That word made Aaron's mind tighten. Escaped from where? The colony had no prisons. The only structures beyond the ridge were abandoned, unless he walked to the heater and turned it on. Warm air began to spread through the room. Lyra's hands shook as she held them near the vent. Aaron sat across from her. "If you want to stay here, I need to know what you are running from." Her eyes met his for the first time. They were sharp and focused now. "There is something coming. It will reach the colony in 3 days. I was kept by them. I heard their plans." "Them?" Aaron asked. "Not human." She said. The room felt smaller suddenly. Aaron had heard of aliens, but only in old space travel reports. No one in this sector had seen one in decades. "They move at night," Lyra said. "They take people without sound. I saw them take my crew one by one. I hid until I found a way out. If they know I am here, they will come." Aaron leaned back. "And the mark on your arm?" She looked down at it. "A tracker. But I broke its signal before I left." Aaron knew enough about colony tech to understand that if she was right, her pursuers could still be searching. He glanced at the scanner on his desk. It could be modified to detect energy pulses, maybe even track something alien. "Why come to me?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "You work with machines. I saw you fix the signal towers. I need someone who can help me warn the colony. The governor will not believe me. They will only believe if we show proof." Aaron studied her expression. She was not lying. Or if she was better at hiding the truth than anyone he had ever met. Outside, the rain grew heavier. The wind rattled the small glass panels in the walls. Aaron thought of the colony, the families, the children, the old miners. If what Lyra said was true, 3 days was not much time to prepare. He made his choice. "You can stay here tonight, but tomorrow we find proof. If these things are real, the colony will need to know." Relief passed across her face, but she still glanced at the door as if expecting it to open. "Thank you," she said. Aaron stood and began pulling tools from the shelves. "We start now. If we can track the signal from that mark, we might also track where they are." Lyra moved closer, watching his hands as he connected wires and checked readings. She seemed more comfortable when he was working, as if the steady hum of the tools made the fear fade. The night stretched on. Aaron's small home filled with the soft glow of monitors and the smell of solder. Lyra sat near the heater, wrapping herself in a spare blanket. At one point, she asked quietly, "Why are you helping me?" Aaron did not look up from his work. "Because if what you say is true, Helping you might be the only way to save everyone. By dawn, they had built a rough device. A handheld scanner tuned to the faint frequency still pulsing from Lyra's arm. Aaron held it up, and the display flickered with faint readings pointing toward the ridge. He set the scanner down and looked at her. If this works, we follow the signal tomorrow. We find them before they find us. Lyra nodded. And then, Aaron said, we make sure the colony knows exactly what is coming. The first light of day pushed through the clouds, but the storm still lingered. Somewhere beyond the ridge, something moved, and now Aaron and Lyra were the only ones who knew. The storm eased by morning, but the air still carried the smell of wet earth and metal. Aaron tightened the straps on his pack while Lyra stood near the window, her eyes fixed on the distant ridge. The faint blue light from the mark on her arm pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat. Are you ready? Aaron asked. She nodded. The sooner we go, the better. They will not wait. Aaron lifted the handheld scanner from the table. Its small screen showed a thin arrow pointing west toward the ridge. The signal was faint, but steady. He clipped it to his belt. They stepped outside into the quiet streets. The colony was waking. Miners prepared for their shifts. Traders set up stalls. The smell of baked bread drifted from a food stand. No one noticed the two of them leaving. Aaron preferred it that way. The path to the ridge began as a dusty road, but soon it narrowed into a trail lined with sharp black rocks. The wind here was colder, carrying grains of sand that stung the skin. After an hour, the colony buildings were only shapes in the distance. The scanner beeped in a slow, steady rhythm. Lyra walked slightly ahead, her pace quick but silent. Aaron noticed she kept glancing over her shoulder. You think they are already looking for you? He asked. They never stopped looking, she said. The trail climbed upward. Strange stone pillars rose on either side, their surfaces etched with patterns. Some said these markings were made by the first settlers to map the area. Others claimed they were older, carved by something not human. By midday, the ridge came into full view, a jagged wall of stone cutting across the horizon. Beyond it lay the Badlands, a place where the ground cracked like broken glass and the air shimmered with heat. They stopped at a small outcrop to drink water. Aaron checked the scanner again. The arrow now pointed directly at the ridge. The beeping grew faster. We are close, he said. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Good, but we need to be careful. They will not be alone. What do you mean? They have machines. Watchers, they move like metal insects. They see everything. Aaron tightened his grip on the scanner. Then we moved slow. They climbed a narrow path that wound between sharp rocks. At one point, the wind dropped suddenly, and the air felt heavy. Lyra raised a hand for him to stop. She crouched low and pointed ahead. Something moved on the ridge. At first, Aaron thought it was a small animal, but then he saw the glint of metal. It was a machine, no bigger than a human torso, with long spidery legs. Its body was black, covered in thin plates that shifted like scales. A single red lens on its front rotated slowly, scanning the rocks. That is a watcher, Lyra whispered. It moved with smooth, precise steps, pausing now and then to tilt its head toward the ground. Aaron guessed it was searching for tracks. How do we get past it? He asked. They cannot hear well, Lyra said, but they see everything in front of them. We wait for it to move away, then we cross. They waited behind a boulder as the machine continued its slow patrol. When it turned toward the opposite slope, Lyra signaled to move. They crouched low and stepped across the path, their boots silent on the stone. They reached the shadow of the ridge and began to climb. The air grew warmer. The stone here was smoother, almost polished. At the top, the land opened into the Badlands. It was a wide expanse of cracked earth and jagged ridges. Heat shimmered in the distance, making the horizon waver. The scanner's arrow pointed deeper in. As they moved forward, the ground began to slope downward into a shallow basin. In the center stood something that made Aaron's chest tighten. A ship. It was large, shaped like a crescent, its surface dark and without markings. Faint blue light pulsed along its edges, the same shade as the mark on Lyra's arm. Round it, smaller machines moved in circles, their legs digging into the earth as they worked. "That is where they keep the taken," Lyra said. "Inside. They prepare them for transport." Aaron scanned the ship. The signal from Lyra's arm was strong now. He could almost feel the hum of its energy through the scanner. "We cannot get close without being seen," he said. "There's a way," Lyra replied. She pointed to a narrow crack in the ground that ran toward the basin. "That leads to an old tunnel. It will take us under their machines." They moved quickly, keeping low as the watchers patrolled above. The crack widened into a hidden entrance. The air inside was cooler, and the light faded to darkness. Aaron turned on a small lamp. The tunnel walls were rough, marked with strange grooves. Dust shifted under their feet as they moved deeper. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Faint light spilled in from an opening above. Through it, Aaron could see the underside of the alien ship. The metal shimmered slightly, as if alive. "This is close enough," Lyra said. "From here, we can record their presence. Proof for the colony." Aaron set the scanner to record, capturing both the energy readings and the visual feed through his lamp. He kept his movement steady. This might be the only chance they had. Then a sound echoed through the chamber, a faint clicking, sharp and quick. Lyra's eyes widened. One of the watchers found the tunnel. Aaron turned off the lamp. In the darkness, the clicking grew louder. Metal scraped against stone. They moved back into the shadows, pressing against the wall. A thin beam of red light swept across the chamber. The watcher crawled in, its legs moving with unnatural precision. Aaron's hand tightened on the scanner. If the machine detected them, it would call the others. The watcher paused, its lens shifting left and right. Then, slowly, it moved toward the far side of the chamber. Its legs scraped across the rock. Each step measured. Aaron looked at Lyra. She gave a small nod. When the watcher turned away, they slipped toward the tunnel exit, silent and careful. The clicking faded as they moved farther down the tunnel. Finally, they emerged into the open air again, their hearts pounding. Aaron checked the scanner. The recording was intact. The proof was there. Lyra looked at the ridge. "We must go back fast. Once they know the watcher has not returned, they will search." Aaron nodded. "Then we move now." As they began their return journey, the sky over the Badlands darkened with approaching clouds. The wind picked up, carrying with it a faint hum, not from the storm, but from something mechanical. They were no longer just observing the enemy. The enemy was moving. The wind chased them down from the ridge. Sand whipped against their faces as Aaron and Lyra hurried along the rocky path. The scanner bounced at Aaron's side, its data secure inside its memory core. Every few steps, Lyra glanced behind them, her eyes scanning the horizon. By the time the colony walls came into view, the clouds had thickened. The sky glowed faintly from the lightning hidden inside the storm. Aaron's boots were heavy with dust when they passed through the gate. Few people noticed them enter. The miners were returning from their shifts, their faces tired, their carts piled with ore. The sound of hammers and distant machinery filled the air. Inside Aaron's small home, the heater hummed softly. He closed the door and slid the lock into place. Lyra removed her hood, shaking the dust from her hair. "Let me see it," she said. Aaron set the scanner on the table. The small display lit up with the recorded feed. Blue light pulsed across the screen, showing the alien ship's readings and the movements of the watchers. Lyra leaned closer, her eyes fixed on the patterns. "This is enough to make them listen," she said. "Maybe," Aaron replied. "The governor will not be easy to convince." Lyra looked at him sharply. "If we waste time, they will arrive. Before the colony even knows the danger." Aaron understood. He picked up the scanner and headed toward the administrative hall with Lyra close behind. The hall stood at the center of the colony, its tall metal doors guarded by 2 officers. They stepped aside when Aaron explained he had urgent information. Inside, the governor sat at a long table with 2 advisors. His face was lined from years of managing the colony's affairs. He looked up as they entered. "What is this about?" he asked. Aaron placed the scanner on the table and activated the playback. The governor leaned forward as the alien ship appeared on the screen. The advisors exchanged quick glances when the watchers came into view. "This is beyond the ridge," Aaron explained. "We found it today. Lyra says they are coming here." The governor studied the feed in silence. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair. It could be a trick of the light, mining gas, old equipment from the first settlers. "You know the Badlands are full of strange sights. It is not a trick," Lyra said. "I lived on that ship for weeks. I escaped. They are coming in 3 days." The governor frowned. "You are not from this colony. Why should I take your word over what my own scouts report?" Lyra's voice stayed steady. "Because your scouts never go that far. And because if you wait for proof, it will be too late." The room grew quiet. The governor finally spoke. "I will order the gates to be reinforced. But I cannot risk spreading panic without more evidence." Aaron stepped forward. "We need to prepare the people now, not when they are already at our walls." The governor shook his head. "You have done your part. I will handle the rest." It was clear the conversation was over. Outside, the storm wind rattled the metal panels of the hall. Lyra looked frustrated as they walked back toward Arn's home. "He does not believe," she said. "He believes enough to prepare the gates," Aaron replied. "But that will not stop them." That night, the storm broke over the colony. Rain fell in heavy sheets, flooding the narrow streets. The sound covered all other noise. Aaron sat by the window, watching the water slide down the glass. Lyra sat on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the heater dots. Suddenly, a faint pulse of red light flickered through the rain. Aaron leaned forward. The light came from the direction of the outer wall. Lyra stood. "That is not from the colony." They grabbed their coats and went out into the storm. The streets were nearly empty, the rain pounding hard enough to blur their vision. They followed the faint red glow to the western edge of the colony. Near the wall, a shadow moved, tall and angular, a watcher. Its legs scraped against the stone as it crawled slowly along the outside, scanning the surface. The rain made its metal body glisten. Arn's breath caught. If one was here, more could be nearby. Lyra pulled him back into an alley. "If it sees us, it will call them." They waited, pressed against the wall, until the watcher's red light faded into the storm. When they returned to Arn's home, both were soaked and silent. "They are already here," Lyra said finally. "Testing your defenses." Aaron knew she was right. The governor's slow response would not be enough. If they wanted the colony to survive, they needed a plan of their own. He set the scanner on the table and began sorting through his tools. "We cannot fight them head-on, but maybe we can disrupt them." Lyra stepped closer. "How?" "They use signals to track and coordinate," Aaron explained. "If we can jam their frequency, we can delay them. That might give the colony time to prepare for real." Her eyes lit with determination. "Then we start now." The storm raged outside as they worked. Aaron stripped old comm units for parts, building a small transmitter that could interfere with the Watcher's signals. Lyra helped by tuning the settings, using her memory of the ship's systems dot by dawn. The device was ready, a black box no larger than a storage crate. Its surface dotted with small antennas. "It will not destroy them," Aaron said, "but it will confuse them, and confusion can be enough." Lyra nodded. "We take it to the ridge tonight. We place it close to their camp." Aaron knew the risk was high, but if they did nothing, the colony would face the full force of the enemy without warning. As the first light of morning touched the wet streets, they both knew their path was set. The Badlands awaited them again, but this time, they would not go just to watch, they would go to strike first. The second night after the storm was colder. A thin mist clung to the ground as Aaron and Lyra stood near the colony's western gate, packs on their backs and the black jamming device wrapped in cloth. The streets were quiet, and the guards at the gate paid little attention to two figures slipping into the darkness. They moved quickly, their boots sinking into wet sand as they left the safety of the walls. Above, the clouds had broken apart, revealing a pale moon that lit their path toward the ridge. The air was damp, carrying the faint metallic scent that had begun to haunt Aaron since seeing the alien ship. The scanner hung from his belt, its screen dimmed to avoid drawing light. Every so often, Lyra would raise her head and listen, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of watchers. They reached the base of the ridge just before midnight. The rocks were slick from the rain, but the climb was easier than before. Once at the top, they crouched low and peered into the Badlands. The alien ship still sat in the basin, but its surroundings had changed. More watchers patrolled the ground, their red lenses sweeping the area in smooth arcs. Faint blue light ran in thin lines across the soil, forming a strange pattern around the ship. "What are those lines?" Aaron whispered. Lyra's face was tense. "Energy conduits. They are powering something under the ground. We must place the jammer inside the circle, or it will not work." That meant getting dangerously close. They descended the ridge using the same narrow path as before. Halfway down, a watcher passed only a few meters away. They froze, pressing against the stone until it moved on dot at the base of the ridge. They crawled into the same crack that led to the old tunnel. The air inside was dry, and the darkness felt heavier than last time. Their footsteps were silent. On the dust, when they reached the chamber beneath the ship, Aaron could feel a faint vibration in the stone, a low hum, steady and deep. The underside of the ship glowed faintly, and he could see the patterns of the conduits running toward it. "This is the place," Lyra said. "We set it here." Aaron unwrapped the jamming device and placed it on the ground. Its antennas unfolded. With a soft click, he connected the last wire and switched it on. A faint green light blinked at the center. "How long will it last?" Lyra asked. "Hours, maybe more. But once they notice, they will search for it." They turned to leave, but then a new sound echoed through the chamber. Not the sharp clicking of a watcher, but a deep metallic groan. Lyra's eyes widened. They are activating the ship. A soft blue glow filled the chamber as the conduits brightened. Aaron grabbed the scanner and switched it to live feed. Energy readings spiked on the screen. "We have to move," he said. They retreated into the tunnel. But as they neared the exit, a sudden red beam cut across the darkness. A watcher was blocking the path. It moved forward, its legs clattering against the rock. The red lens locked onto them. Aaron's heart pounded. He glanced at the walls, rough, uneven stone. Then he spotted a loose slab above the watcher. Without thinking, he grabbed a metal rod from his pack and jammed it into a crack. The slab broke free and fell, smashing into the watcher's back. Sparks flew, and the machine's movements turned erratic. Lyra grabbed his arm. "Now." They slipped past as the watcher twitched on the ground. The moment they stepped into the open air, a distant mechanical howl cut through the night. It came from the direction of the ship. "They know," Lyra said. The howl was answered by another, closer one. Red lights appeared along the ridge, moving fast. Aaron and Lyra ran. The jamming device was working. The red lights jerked and paused, their movements less smooth than before, but it would not hold them forever. The ground was slick, and Aaron nearly slipped on a patch of wet stone. Lyra caught his arm, pulling him upright without breaking pace. They climbed the ridge's far side and began the descent toward the colony. By the time they reached the flat ground, the howls had faded, but they both knew the enemy would not stop. The jammer was only a delay. When they passed through the colony gates, the guards looked at them with confusion but did not ask questions. Inside, the streets were empty except for the sound of the wind. In Aaron's home, they sat at the table, both breathing hard. The scanner showed irregular movement patterns from the watchers near the ship. The device had worked, for now. "How long before they recover?" Aaron asked. "Not long," Lyra said. "They will adapt. Machines always do." Aaron stared at the screen. "Then we use the time to convince the governor. With this, he will have no choice but to act." The next morning, they returned to the administrative hall. The governor listened as Aaron explained the jamming device and its effect. Lyra described the watcher's disrupted movements, but the governor's face remained troubled. "If this is true, we may be facing more than just a raid. This could be an invasion." "Then we prepare for it," Aaron said firmly. The governor hesitated. "I will call a council meeting tonight, but understand this: if we make the wrong decision, the colony will fall into chaos before the enemy even arrives." Outside, Lyra spoke quietly. "He still does not understand the scale." "He will," Aaron said, "because next time they will come too close for anyone to deny." As if in answer to his words, a faint sound carried across the morning air, a deep, distant hum. Not from the colony's machines, from beyond the ridge. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They are testing the ship's engines. Arn's jaw tightened. Then our time is shorter than we thought. The deep hum from beyond the ridge lingered through the morning. It was not loud, but it was constant, like a distant engine running without pause. The colony went about its daily work, but there was an unease in the air. People glanced toward the west more often, their conversations quiet. Aaron sat at his workbench, checking the scanner's latest readings. The jamming device was still active, but its effect was weakening. The watcher's movement patterns were becoming smoother again. Lyra entered, her steps quick. "I saw one," she said. Aaron looked up sharply. "Where?" "Near the old water tower at the edge of the colony. It was moving low, almost crawling, staying in the shadows." That was too close. The wall was supposed to keep anything out. But if a watcher had slipped inside, it meant they had found a way through. "We have to track it," Aaron said. He grabbed the scanner and followed her into the street. The path to the water tower was quiet. The ground was still wet from the storm, and puddles reflected the pale daylight. As they neared the tower, Aaron slowed. A faint scrape echoed from somewhere ahead. They crouched behind a stack of supply crates. The sound came again, a metal limb brushing against stone. Aaron peered around the crates. The watcher was there, its black body low to the ground, its red lens sweeping slowly from side to side. It was examining the base of the tower, stopping now and then to press a thin probe into the soil. "It is mapping the ground," Lyra whispered. "They are looking for weak points." Aaron thought quickly. If the watcher escaped with what it found, the aliens would know exactly where to breach the colony. He checked the scanner. The watcher's signal was strong. "We can block it," he said. "If we overload its lens, it will shut down for a while." Lyra raised an eyebrow. With what? Aaron reached into his pack and pulled out a small flash emitter. It was a repair tool for welding in tight spaces, but at full power. Its light could overload most sensors. They moved silently along the crates until they were only a few steps away. Aaron set the emitter to maximum, and when the watcher turned its lens toward them, triggered it, a burst of intense white light filled the air. The watcher twitched, its legs jerking in confusion. It stumbled sideways, its lens flickering. "Now," Aaron said. They pushed the machine over, its legs scraping against the ground. Lyra quickly pulled a panel from its side and yanked out a cluster of thin wires. The watcher went still, its red light fading to black. They dragged it behind the crates. Out of sight, Aaron examined the wires. "We can use its memory core. It might tell us how it got past the wall." Lyra helped him remove the small black cube inside. It was cold to the touch, its surface covered in fine ridges. Back in Arn's home, they connected the cube to his terminal. Lines of strange symbols filled the screen. "Alien data. I can read some of this," Lyra said, leaning over his shoulder. It came through the drainage tunnels under the west wall. Aaron stared at the screen. The drainage tunnels were old, built when the colony was first established. Most were sealed, but clearly not all. They will send more through the same way, Lyra said. Aaron stood. "Then we seal it, tonight." That evening, as the sun set behind the ridge, they left for the western drainage outlet. The tunnel entrance was half hidden behind a pile of old scrap metal. The grate covering it was rusted but bent inward, as if something had forced its way through. Aaron examined the ground. Fresh tracks marked the wet soil, thin, sharp impressions left by watcher legs. "They came through here," he said. Lyra pulled a small satchel from her pack. Inside were sealing charges, tools meant for closing mine shafts. Aaron placed them around the tunnel mouth, securing them in the damp stone. They stepped back, and Aaron triggered the charges. The dull thump echoed in the night as the entrance collapsed, sealing the tunnel with heavy rock. "That will slow them," Lyra said. "Only for a while." Aaron replied, "They will find another way." They turned to leave, but froze. From the shadows beyond the scrap pile, two red lights appeared, moving low and fast. "Run," Aaron said. The watchers closed in, their legs moving in quick, sharp bursts. Aaron and Lyra darted between piles of debris, their boots splashing through puddles. One watcher leapt onto a crate. Landing ahead of them, blocking the path, Aaron pulled the flash emitter again. But before he could activate it, Lyra tossed a metal tool across the ground. The Watcher's lens followed the sound, and they slipped past it. Sprinting toward the colony streets, they did not stop until they reached Arn's home. Both were breathing hard. "They are getting bolder," Lyra said. "Soon they will stop." Hiding, Aaron nodded. "And when they do, everyone will see the truth." He looked at the scanner. Multiple faint signals now flickered on the display, more than before. The Watchers were already inside the colony. That night, Aaron barely slept. Every sound outside seemed sharper. The wind rattling a loose panel, a faint scrape against stone. The enemy was no longer beyond the ridge. They were here. By morning, the tension in the colony had changed. People were still moving through the streets. But the quiet looks and the quick glances told Aaron that rumors had spread. Some had probably heard the strange scraping in the night. Others may have seen a shadow pass between buildings. Aaron knew the colony leaders would not act yet. They would need proof, something they could not deny until then. The Watchers would keep moving unseen. Lyra arrived with a bag over her shoulder. "We cannot do this alone anymore," she said. Aaron agreed. "But we must be careful who we tell. If the wrong person speaks too soon, the leaders will just shut them down." They spent the day talking quietly to people they trusted, workers in the machine shop, guards at the wall, a few traders who often traveled outside. They shared only what was safe to say, asking if anyone had noticed strange sounds or broken fences. Most nodded but avoided speaking too loudly. By evening, Aaron and Lyra had gathered 6 people they believed they could trust. They met in the old storehouse on the edge of the colony. The air inside was dusty, and the dim light from the single lamp gave the room a serious mood. "We need to watch the Watchers," Aaron began. "They are here. I have tracked them. Lyra has seen them. If we know where they move, we can predict their next step." One of the men, Jorn, crossed his arms. "And then what? We can't fight them with our tools. We don't have weapons strong enough." Lyra stepped forward. "We are not trying to fight them yet. We are trying to learn. They are not perfect. They make mistakes. We find those mistakes, and we use them." Mira, a young guard, leaned forward. "You think we can follow them without being seen?" Aaron nodded. "Their sensors are focused forward. If we move carefully, we can stay behind them. The trick is to watch from a distance and use cover." They made a plan. Each person would take a section of the colony at night, moving silently, and noting any strange movement or sound. They would meet in the storehouse every morning to share what they found. That night, Aaron took the eastern streets near the old grain mill. The buildings there were close together, with narrow alleys. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every step sound louder than it was. He stayed in the shadows, scanning slowly with his handheld device. At first, there was nothing but the soft wind between the walls. Then, a faint signal appeared. He moved closer, heart steady. In the alley behind the mill, a Watcher crouched low, its legs moving with small, precise motions. It was digging into the side of a wall, not to break it, but to place something inside. Aaron stayed still, watching. The Watcher pressed a small, dark disc into the hole it had made, then smoothed the wall over. Without a sound, it moved away into the shadows. Aaron waited until it was gone, then approached the wall. He ran his fingers over the spot and found it slightly warmer than the rest. He chipped away the surface carefully and pulled the disc free. It was small and light, with faint blue lines glowing along its surface. When he returned to the storehouse before dawn, Lyra was already there. The others arrived in pairs, each carrying notes and sketches. "I found this," Aaron said, placing the disc on the table. Mira frowned. "What is it?" "Not sure yet," Aaron replied. "But I think they are marking or tracking certain places in the colony." Jorn leaned in. "If we can learn what it does, we can use it against them." For the next 2 days, they focused on finding more of the discs. By the 3rd night, they had gathered 7. Each had been hidden in walls, near gates, or under walkways. Back at Arn's workshop, they examined one carefully. The design was unfamiliar, but Lyra discovered a small port on its side. Using a modified scanner, She connected to it. Symbols and lines appeared on the screen, maps. Detailed layouts of the colony, with certain paths marked in bright lines. They are making a movement network, Lyra said slowly. These disks share information with each other. The Watchers can use them to move faster without scanning. Everything again. Arn's mind raced. If we replace some of these disks with ones we design, we can control the path they take. We can lead them where we want them to go. It was a dangerous idea, but it was the first real advantage they had. For the next week, the group worked in secret. Aaron built replacement disks using old mining trackers. Lyra programmed them to send false signals, leading Watchers toward empty alleys or sealed areas. When they began swapping the alien disks with their own, the results were almost immediate. The Watchers started appearing in places with no value, circling useless corners, or getting trapped between fences. On the fifth night, Mira returned to the storehouse with a rare smile. 3 of them were chasing a path that led straight into a locked warehouse. They stayed there for nearly an hour before they figured it out. The group laughed quietly. The Watchers had no expression, no voice. But it felt good to know they could be confused. Still, Aaron did not forget the bigger picture. They will learn, he said. We are buying time, not winning yet, Lyra nodded. Then we use the time well. The group expanded their patrols, mapping every movement and finding more hidden devices. The colony above them continued as usual, unaware of the small, silent war happening in the shadows. But one night, as Aaron was returning from his patrol, he saw something that made him stop. At the far end of the street, lit faintly by the moon, a figure stood watching him. It was not a Watcher. It was tall, wearing a smooth dark suit, with a single pale light where a face should be. It did not move toward him. It only stood, then turned and walked away into the night. When Aaron told Lyra, her expression hardened. If they are sending something new, it means they know someone is interfering with them. Aaron looked at the map on the wall, a map filled with red lines, showing Watcher movement, and blue lines showing their false paths. The game had changed again. The first rays of morning touched the damaged land. Smoke still rose in thin trails from the ruins of the old camp, but the air was calm. Aaron stood at the edge of the valley, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He could feel the warmth of the sun, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like a promise instead of a warning. Lena stepped up beside him. She was tired, but there was a spark in her eyes. The scouts returned. No sign of the enemy ships. The sky is clear. Aaron let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. Then it's over. But Lena shook her head. Not over, only changed. We have to rebuild. We have to make sure this never happens again. Behind them, the rest of the survivors gathered. Some carried tools, some carried food, and others carried nothing but the will to help. They all looked to Aaron. In their eyes, he was not just a fighter anymore. He was a leader. We will not go back to hiding, Aaron said, his voice strong. We have seen what we are capable of. The galaxy has seen it too. They will know humans are not weak. We are not to be taken. A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. Even the youngest among them stood taller. The repairs began immediately. The broken walls were cleared, the energy lines reconnected, and new defenses planned. Aaron worked beside them, never asking for rest. Lena stayed near him, offering quiet words when the weight became too heavy. One afternoon, a messenger drone appeared from the sky. It carried a simple message: Alliance meeting requested. The Galactic Council, the same body that once ignored their pleas, now wanted to speak to humans. Aaron smiled faintly. They've realized they can't ignore us anymore. The meeting took place in the rebuild hall. Voices from across the stars came through the comm system. Some offered apologies, some offered trade, and a few offered cautious friendship. But all spoke with a new tone, one of respect, when the council asked what humans wanted in return. Arn's answer was clear. We want peace, we want fairness, and we will stand for it, not just for ourselves, but for any who are treated as we were. There was silence on the other end, then an agreement. The council declared a pact to protect the worlds under its name. Days turned into weeks, and the settlement began to grow stronger. Trade ships arrived with supplies. Engineers shared knowledge. In return, humans shared their own inventions, simple, clever solutions that others had never considered. One evening, Aaron walked alone to the cliff above the valley. The stars shone brighter than he had ever seen. Lena joined him, carrying a small lantern. "What now?" she asked. Aaron looked at the night sky. "Now we prepare. We live. We make sure no one forgets what happened here." Lena nodded. "And if they come again, then we remind them," Aaron said with quiet certainty. "We remind them that humans do not fall easily." The wind carried the scent of fresh soil from the fields below, a sign that life was returning. Somewhere in the distance, laughter echoed. It was the sound of a people who had endured and refused to be broken. The final dawn had come, and with it, a new chapter for humankind. They were no longer just survivors. They were builders, protectors, and a name the galaxy would remember. And under that endless sky, humanity stood ready for whatever came next.